You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Rays podcast. My name is Ulises Sambrano, and alongside Kevin Weiss, we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Be sure to follow us on any other podcast platform, but of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is growing every day. Thank you so much. And hit that like button right now if you're there in order to help us beat the algorithm so that we can find more Rays fans and expand our community. Okay, so yes, if you're on YouTube, you might see a little different background. Like I said earlier, this week I am in Japan. We'll be in Japan for the next foreseeable future. And right now I am, just a little update, I'm in Kyoto. I'm in Ryokan, which is a traditional Japanese abode. And it's pretty rad. I'm having a lot of fun here. And I'm just wowed by this country, and I'm having a terrific time. It's very, very lovely. But just because you're far away does not mean that Rays baseball just stops. It keeps going. And that's exactly what happened when the Rays faced the Colorado Rockies on Wednesday evening. Days are a blur when you have to, keep track of those. So yeah, it was a very exciting game. Look, the Rays, we said it on Monday's show, you don't want to say the word sweep, but when you're facing the caliber of team that the Rockies are putting on 2023 and this season, you really would be a letdown. And I know it's baseball, everybody can win a game, but it would be a letdown to lose against the Rockies. Of course it would be. And the Rays were really close to lose on Wednesday evening. But again, Yandy Diaz showed up and was able to keep it alive. 5-3. He gets a little blooper that falls in center field, and somehow, some way, did the worst slide ever possible, and he's not hurt, which is fantastic news. But if you haven't seen how he got back to first there, it was pretty funny. Not a very athletic slide back, but we're glad he's okay. Isaac Paredes, my goodness, his first shortstop start with the Rays. He had done that a handful of times, about 4 with the Detroit Tigers when he was a rookie with them. And he played 2 innings in the position last year, but of course this is his first start. Fantastic. If you can expand Isaac Paredes' role with the glove even more so, because let's remember, he plays third, second, first. If you're able to just have him as hey, we need you to just man shortstop for a little bit, just like they did with Ben Zobrist, okay? Maybe the young folk out there on social media, on anti-social media, do not remember that Ben Zobrist did this for the Rays, but he actually was a shortstop. And according to Joe Madden, Ben Zobrist did not have any chrome, but he made the plays. And ultimately, that's what you need. You just need somebody who can make the plays. And Isaac Paredes, if you're able to just get that from him, oh my, that would be huge. That would be huge for this team. And I like what it signifies when they did this move for this game. It means that, number one, Kevin Cash and company are obviously listening to the podcast, which is great news. Good job, boys. But more seriously, it's just that I've been just clamoring, having my BA moment that he had with Keppinger in 2012. I've been having my Paredes moment this 2023 season of you have to have him in the lineup. There's just no excuse anymore of I don't want to hear about swing planes. I don't want to hear about righty against righty. I don't want to hear about, anything unless he's hurt. That's the only thing that I need to hear if he's not on the lineup. He's hurt. And I don't want to hear that. No, nor do you. So that means that he should be in the lineup. He should be in the lineup. He's a tremendous run producer. And guess what? He is incredibly young. This kid, he's a kid. He can be one of those core pieces of this team going forward and really change the dynamic of the offense if he's this guy that he's been showing in 2023. So great to see him get in the lineup and doing positive things. Of course, he gets a home run. He's not the only one that had got a bomb. Randy Arozarena also got in the action with a solo shot to left field to Randy Land. But of course, as the social media team pointed out, not Friday. So unfortunately, those folks did not get a free beverage from Randy tonight. But he did get to 20. So now it's up to him to get those bags in order to be a back-to-back 2020 guy. Very, very impressive if he's able to do that. But we, as Rays fans, we know Randy. And just like Kevin said the other day, that's incredibly important to him personally to get those achievements. So we might see Randy be a little bit more aggressive on the base paths. So that will cause some head scratching moves. We know that, but this is me letting you know to watch out for this so you don't get as upset as you will, because awareness is such a beautiful thing. Self-awareness is even better. So when we know what to expect, then we're a little bit better prepared. And you can be better prepared to talk about, well, baseball if you join Bunches. Okay, it is a free app where sports fans can chat. It is a new app that is built for you, sports fans, and in real time you can chat with other sports fans. We have the link in the show notes in the description below, and either the audio form or the video form, or you can go to the Apple App Store and download the app right now and just search Bunches, and you're going to love the conversations that you're going to have. Okay, there's actually a Locked On MLB group on Bunches. You can connect with other baseball fans and chat with any other Rays fan that you might want to. And if you have any questions or comments about the episode, you can chat about it on the Locked On MLB Bunches. On Bunches, you can download the app today. And when you do, our friends of Bunches, like I said, have featured a tab for Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover part of the app. You can also click again the link in the description and the show notes to join the Locked On MLB Bunch community today. Well, talking about the offense, the man of the hour, Brennan Lowe. Why Brennan Lowe? Because unfortunately, the umpiring crew forgot to umpire in New York and at the Trop. He was off the bag, people. And if you don't know what happened, Isaac Paredes basically got the walk-off with a grounder on the left side of the field. The throw came in. It was a good play. I mean, it was an athletic play, but the foot was off the bag, at the first base bag. Everybody saw it in their mother. Even Trisha Whitaker posted a picture of her with her hands on her mouth when they said that the call stood. When the call stood, it was ridiculous. I mean, you could literally see bag, dirt, cleat. Unreal. One of the worst calls I've seen not being overturned in this era of replay. But guess what? The man of the hour, lefty, Brennan Lowe, came through and said, hey, you know what, boys? Isaac, he got hosed there. I won't. I will get a single to right field. Basabe will score from second, and here's the ball game. Walk-off fashion. That's exactly what happened. Before that, though, there were some pitching performances that we should highlight. I know Chef Savale, 5 innings, good stuff. Got into trouble in the 6th. Colin Poche could not lower the temperature there and basically faces 5 dudes, gets 2 outs. No bueno. Kittredge makes an appearance. Fairbanks is also there in the ninth, in the 10th to bring it to Brendan Lowe. And then Jacob Lopez. Jacob Lopez, my goodness. He is such a bright young man. 7 innings pitched. He has a 1.29 ERA and a .86 whip. I know, small sample size, kill me. Those are dope numbers. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Jacob Lopez. So hopefully we can get to see that young man succeed more and more as time goes on. But he has been a very bright spot here for the Rays. And last but not least, I have to mention what Yandy Diaz is doing with the bat. It's making me remember that 09 chase by Jason Bartlett. And it's very fun when I know batting average is like not the biggest thing for people anymore, which, I understand what they're coming from, but it doesn't mean nothing. It does not mean nothing. I'll say it again. So to be a batting champ would be such a very cool thing for Rays fans to experience. And Yandy Diaz is just such a cool human being and very cool player. And his story is just bleeping unbelievable. So really to just have the year that he's been having and plus a batting champ title in his bag and his pedestal, what a year. New father, all-star selection, starter, by the way, homers in the all-star game. And then to put that on there, that would be surreal. That would be surreal for him and his family. So hopefully he's able to keep it going, not only for himself, but also for Rays Nation to experience that. Sleeper is a fantasy sports and real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. Sleeper has become the fastest organically growing fantasy platform in the world. It has over 5 million active users as of last year in 2022, while earning some of the highest levels of engagement per user in the industry. At Sleeper, it's not just about sports. It's about building personal connections and lasting memories. So today, you got to get on Sleeper, swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. First-time depositors can receive 100% instant deposits, match up to $100 using promo code LOCKED on. Again, use promo code Locked On, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On upon signing up for an instant deposit to match up to $100. Okay, just know the dynamic payouts are live. You can place in-game contests, more stat categories to place contests on. I mean, you go from home runs, stolen bases, triples, whatever it is you can think of, you can do so. So again, go download Sleeper today. In other news, of course, we've set this as this story has been unfolding. We don't like talking about it. You don't like hearing about it. But guess what? By not mentioning it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So MLB has placed Wander Franco alongside MLBPA on administrative leave until further notice. It is not disciplinary, so he will continue to get paid and accrue service time. We have said this before, and we'll say it again. Just hope the allegations are not true. Kevin mentioned that the billboards inside Tropicana Field have been taken down, and merchandise was either few and far between or just not existent with Franco's name. If you're on the road on 275, please write down a comment if you can still see the billboards or not. Obviously, there are no Wander Franco billboards in Japan, so I can't give you that information. But if you do drive, through 275, and you can give us that little note, it would be great to add that to the community on YouTube on the comments, and so you can let us know if that exists or not. Will we see him this season? We don't know. Nobody knows. But you just, again, the biggest thing is you just hope that the allegations are not true. That's it. That's all we can do. We just hope because nobody knows. Nobody knows. But yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff. But like I said earlier, you're not really up to it, with the news and stuff. So we gotta give you that information, and so that's what we were trying to do. Just provide facts. Keep the speculation to zero. In better mood and in that was not a very good segue. That's what happens when you're doing a solo show. Lindsey Crosby, who, by the way, is the host of MLB Prospects. You guys should follow him on anti-social media. You should follow his podcast on any podcast platform, of course, on YouTube. He will just make you so bleeping smart on prospects. This guy just knows his stuff. His calm demeanor mixed in with the wealth of knowledge that he has and approachability, it just makes any conversation with Lindsey just so enjoyable. So I know that you will enjoy this second part of his conversation with Kevin on Rays prospects and more. So without further ado, here is Lindsey Crosby.
Interesting. Now, there are some other guys that the Rays recently called up. One, Jonathan Aranda, who's had a cup of coffee here, there, then been sent down, and then tore it up in AAA. Really, not much more you can prove or do at that level before you finally get that opportunity again. Just do you have some sort of overall report or read on what Jonathan Aranda eventually could provide? Or like Ulises and I have discussed, it could be a case of maybe he's a movable candidate during the offseason because it is the Rays, so they have a lot of prospect equity on their hands, and it's just about how do we find a spot for all of these guys?
Yeah, and the thing about Jonathan Aranda is he fits that, like, he hasn't played as much first base as I thought he would, but he fits that first base model that the Rays have gone after recently with a guy like Kyle Manzardo, Trey Morgan in this year's draft, Nate Lowe back when he was here, about really good hit tool. Power tool is maybe necessarily fine, but it's something where he's an incredibly tough out at the plate. And the first time that he gets hot and stays hot, it feels like that's his best chance to make it to the bigs. But I do think his best role would be as that first baseman who could, in an emergency, could kick out and play somewhere else. And like you said, Manzardo already got moved. Given the career year that Yandy had, the fact that Xavier Isaac has come on so much this year as a different type of first baseman, that power hitting, big slugging first baseman, and you have Trey Morgan in the system, Jonathan Aranda feels like a very attractive trade piece if you want to go out and get another arm in the offseason, simply because the infield is so loaded. He can't really give you a ton of defensive value anywhere else. And if you're not going to be able to give a lot of defensive value, it feels like this team wants you to be a very good power hitter, and that's just not necessarily his game. His bat speed's fine, his power's average at best. He beats you with his approach, with his pitch recognition.
Would it almost be like kind of a James Loney situation? Not much power at first base, more of that hit tool, and maybe that just doesn't play enough for what the Rays are trying to do?
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Like it doesn't feel like he moves the ceiling enough to make a difference versus the other options you have in the system, right? And then Jonathan Aranda is a perfectly fine player. I'm not saying anything's wrong with him, but what he does, the hit over power, okay defense, you can get that from a lot of other places. Right. Some of the guys behind him that have that same profile, a Manzardo, a Trey Morgan, the reason why they became such top prospects is because they were better at the hitting part and the defense part than Jonathan Aranda. Jonathan Aranda is kind of like a diet Kyle Manzardo.
That makes sense. Well, you mentioned Kyle Manzardo a couple times, so I want to get your take on what you thought of that trade that the Rays made with the Guardians, a 1-for-1, which doesn't happen all that often. I guess more or less a true baseball trade, need for need, if you will. And there's so much talk and hype surrounding Kyle Manzardo. We actually had him on the podcast in the off season, and
that was a good episode.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully he finds a spot and thrives there. But just the idea of the Rays giving up a rising prospect like Manzardo for Savali, who has an injury history, but has a proven major league track record and has a couple years of control on his side. And by golly, the Rays certainly need pitching between the news of Shane McClanahan coming down and so many others. And
Jeffrey Springs, Rasmussen.
And question marks on if the Rays are going to, keep Tyler Glasnow around, considering he's owed $25 million next season.
It felt like a very smart move to make for the reasons you mentioned as far as the contractual control and the fact that Savali's having a good season and has a lot of the traits that the team likes. And you hate to lose a guy of the caliber of Kyle Manzardo, and a lot of people are going to kind of look at the stats and say, oh, well, he wasn't having a good year this year. I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this. There's a lot of other things that have gone into what's happening for Kyle Manzardo this year, a lot of family health issues and things like that.
Right.
But it was a really smart trade because it was a position of strength, taking from that to fill a position of need and then having additional control. So many of the other pitchers that were traded at the deadline were guys who were rentals or had one more year left. I'm thinking about Scherzer and Verlander. And the cost was incredibly high for just about every player. And so the cost as far as prospect capital you gave up, yes, you gave up a top 100 prospect, but the value to the Rays was better than a lot of other teams because that was a top 100 prospect at a position you have a lot of really talented players. So it wasn't the same cost, the equivalent cost to the Rays as it would have been to somebody else to make that deal. I liked it when it came in. I still like it now. I know that Savali hasn't gone into the sixth inning on either of his starts since he got here, but as of time of recording, I think he throws maybe the next day. But I like what he does. I think it was a really smart trade simply because of the value of multiple years of control for a player that you had other players who could step into his spot.
And another guy who recently got called up, of course, not Kyle Manzardo, but previously with the talk of Basabe and Aranda, Curtis Mead, a guy who has been talked about endlessly and has been one of those guys that has fronted some of the prospect lists, certainly within the Rays organization. He also has the unique tie-in of being Australian. We've had him on the show. He's a great guy, great to talk to, and seems to be really with it. He's had his share of growing pains in the couple of weeks that he's been up. Just what is your outlook on him going forward? Of course, we can't make a determination on 2025 at bats, but just what you in your heart of hearts believe he can eventually become as a major leaguer.
Yeah, he struggled a bit this year because of the wrist injury. And I think when you look at him at the major league level and you see what he's done this year, I think some of the lack of power production can be traced back to lingering effects from that wrist injury. I remember being in Montgomery for his last Double-A start. And at the time, we didn't know it was his last Double-A start. Yeah. But the thing that impressed me with Curtis Mead is I think defensively, he's a lot better than we've given him credit for. And that's something where the story on Curtis Mead was the defense isn't necessarily that great. He's just a pure hitter. He's like Luis Ariz as far as like not being able to play defense, but he can hit really well. I think his defense is better than we gave him credit for. And we see guys get better defensively as they rise through the minors. That's a natural progression. Mm-hmm. But when he's tinkering, you run the risk of finding something that works and not letting it settle before he tinkers with it again. That's the thing about Curtis Mead you have to be careful of, is he likes to just adjust little small things. Maybe it's the positioning of the hands, or maybe he drops his elbow, or maybe he changes his feet to slightly open stance for a day or an at-bat or a week or whatever it might be. When he tinkers and finds the right thing, as long as Tampa Bay's coaches can go to him and say, hey, keep doing that. That worked. Keep doing that. You're going to have somebody who's going to be a 65, 70 grade hitter at the major league level. And we'll have, if everything connects, we'll have more so line drive power than massive home run numbers, but could probably put 25 out in a season and can give you versatility to cover third base, but still be primarily a second baseman. So I like the outlook. It's just one, getting the wrist injury taken care of, and then two, getting him back into the swing of major league pitching and what it takes to be successful at that level.
Yeah, and that's something that takes time and probably takes playing just about every day, getting your plate full of 3, 4, 5 at bats, whatever it may be, as well. And hopefully he figures it out and thrives at the big league level. You mentioned tinkering. How I guess frequent is that among prospects nowadays, of them trying to rework things and mess around with things during the course of the season, and I guess going into the major leagues as well? I know that's been kind of a theme with major leaguer Brandon Lowe, where he's always trying to figure out the next thing, or he'll go through a slump and play with a lot of things, and it's just kind of a constant battle of finding your way again. Almost like as a golfer, you think you have it all figured out, something's messed up, and then you got to go back to the drawing board and, okay, well, I wasn't shifting my weight correctly, or I'm not rotating correctly, or the hand position is off, whatever it may be. It just, how common is that across baseball, you would say?
It feels like a lot of prospects, like the ones that I've talked to and the hitting coaches that I've sat there and watched batting practice with, it feels like everybody is either, I don't change anything until you make me, or I'm desperate to fix it, or I'm constantly changing things to see either what's comfortable or if I can get better. And that's the two schools of thought. A lot of, as we've gotten better with biomechanical analysis, and a lot of these players are getting more formalized hitting instruction from a younger age, a lot of guys are embracing that tinkering mindset of, maybe if I do this, it'll help me engage my hips earlier so I can get to that inside fastball and pull it down the line. Right. So it's becoming more and more prevalent, but it's still not incredibly common.
Understood. Okay. One more guy that I want to focus on at the major league level who recently got the call up and moving from a position player focus to a pitching focus, Jacob Lopez. He in his most recent outing against the San Francisco Giants went 3 innings and looked impressive as a lefty. And I know that his minor league numbers, just the strikeout rate and just overall, seem to merit good things and good vibes. Just, do you sort of have a read on what he is and what he could become, and sort of his placement onto this Rays roster?
Yeah, Jacob Lopez changed a lot of stuff going into this year. And the thing that I have to worry about, I was really excited to see what he does at the major league level, because he started the year in AA Montgomery, and the Southern League in the first half of the year had those tacky baseballs, the pre-tacked baseballs that MLB was testing. And so because of that, so many pitchers outperformed their career numbers in AA because they had an advantage. And so we saw when he got to Durham, there was a couple things to be a little bit nervous about. The walk rate just about doubled from 2.9 per 9 to 5.1 per 9. The strikeout rate came down to, I think, from 14.5 to a more normal 10.4, but the ERA didn't really change. And so the stuff maybe wasn't as sharp in AAA with an MLB ball versus that tacky baseball, but the essence of who he is as a pitcher was the same. And so I think he's had, he's come in, I think, 1 game in relief, pitched 3 innings, gave up, I want to say maybe 1 run or so. But I think that he's a good pitcher, and he's better than they expected. I mean, he was a 26th rounder in 2018. Those guys are organizational guys, right? He was drafted by the Giants. He wasn't drafted by the Rays. Those are organizational guys. And the fact that he even made it to the bigs is a player development success for Tampa already, never mind the fact that he is in the bigs and is having some success.